Her sister ran the hotel. He shouldn't have cheated there. Natalie Allen was staring at her laptop screen when the first crack appeared in her marriage. The glow from the monitor painted her face in soft blue light as Preston smiled at her through the video call. Behind him, she could see the blurred gray of what he'd told her was a Chicago hotel room. Rain streaked down an invisible window somewhere off camera. He looked tired but handsome in his charcoal suit, the one she'd helped him pick out last spring. "Miss you already, Nat," he said, blowing her a kiss. "This merger is killing me, but I should be wrapped up by Friday." "I miss you too. Don't work too hard." She managed a smile even though her chest felt tight. 7 years of marriage and these business trips still made her feel like something was missing. The call ended. Natalie closed her laptop and picked up her pen, ready to return to the legacy planning documents spread across her desk. Allen Global Consulting had been in her family for 3 generations, and she was in the middle of restructuring the equity distribution when her phone buzzed. A text from Violet. Her younger sister rarely sent photos during work hours. Violet was the general manager at Sapphire Cove Resort, 1,500 miles away in Hawaii, and she took her job seriously. The message preview simply said, "Call me, now. Hi, and welcome to Lumi's Love Library. This is me, quietly putting my writing out into the world for the first time. I'm 25, I love stories, and I believe words still matter, even when you're not sure who's listening yet. If you're here, even by accident, thank you for giving this story a chance. Let's continue." Natalie's thumb hovered over the image before she opened it fully. The photo loaded slowly, pixel by pixel, and when it finally appeared, the air seemed to leave the room. A man in a crisp linen shirt stood at a hotel reception desk, champagne flute raised in a toast. Tropical sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows behind him. Palm trees swayed in the breeze outside. The man's face was turned slightly toward a woman beside him, an Asian American woman with long dark hair and a sundress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. The man was Preston, the same man who had just blown her a kiss from Chicago. Natalie's phone began to ring before she could process what she was seeing. Violet's name flashed on the screen. "Where is your husband?" Violet's voice was controlled, but there was something underneath it. Something sharp. Natalie looked at the photo again. Her hand had started to shake. "He said he was in Chicago. There's a merger. He's been there since Monday." "Natalie, sit down." "I'm sitting." She wasn't. She'd stood up without realizing it. Her legs felt disconnected from her body. "He checked into my hotel 3 days ago, presidential suite. The reservation is under Preston Allen, and he's with a woman named Ariella Reed." Violet paused, and Natalie could hear the careful way her sister was choosing her words. They're acting like they're on their honeymoon, like they've been together for years. The presidential suite. Natalie had personally designed that room. She'd chosen the furniture, approved the color scheme, hung the artwork on the walls. She'd spent weeks making it perfect for the resort's grand opening. Preston had been there with her, had complained about the heat and the mosquitoes, had asked her at least a dozen times when they could go home. He knew exactly which hotel this was. He knew exactly whose hotel this was. "Natalie, are you still there?" "I'm here." Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, flat, like someone else was speaking. "You're sure it's him?" "I checked the registration myself when the front desk flagged the corporate card." Violet's tone shifted from careful to angry. He put her shopping spree on your business account, $5,000 at the resort boutique, charged to Allen Global Consulting for a pre-wedding wardrobe. Pre-wedding. The word hit her like cold water. Natalie looked around her office, the framed photos on the wall. Her and Preston on their actual wedding day. Her in white. Him looking at her like she was the only person in the world. Another photo from last Christmas. One from the opening of Sapphire Cove where they stood beside Violet, all three of them smiling. Her eyes landed on her laptop, still closed, still warm from the video call that had ended less than 5 minutes ago. Natalie. Violet's voice was gentle now. What do you want to do? What did she want to do? The question seemed enormous, impossible. She looked down at the legacy planning documents on her desk. Allen Global Consulting. Her family's name, her grandfather's legacy, her father's expansion, her own careful stewardship, and Preston's name on the corporate cards. How long has he been there? Natalie asked. 3 days. He has the suite booked through the weekend. 3 days. While she'd been alone in their house, reviewing quarterly reports, planning their future. While she'd been texting him goodnight and telling him she loved him. While she'd been stupid enough to believe that the man she married 7 years ago was the same man who'd just blown her a kiss from a fake Chicago hotel room. I'm coming to Hawaii, Natalie said. What? Don't cancel his reservation. Don't let him know anything is wrong. Natalie's mind was already moving, shifting from the numbness of betrayal into something colder, something sharper. How quickly can you get me into the hotel without him seeing me? There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Violet spoke again, there was something almost like pride in her voice. I can have you in a ghost suite by tonight. No guest registry, no paper trail, complete access to hotel security footage. Another pause. Natalie, what are you planning? Natalie looked at the photo again. Preston raising a glass. Ariella leaning into him. Both of them laughing about something. Both of them so sure they'd gotten away with it. I'm planning to find out exactly what my husband has been doing with my family's money, Natalie said. And then, I'm planning to make sure he never does it again. She could almost hear Violet smile through the phone. I'll have the staff entrance open for you. Park in the loading area. I'll meet you there myself. Violet? Yeah? Thank you for calling me. He walked into my hotel, Violet said quietly. Into our family's hotel. With another woman. Using your money. Her voice hardened. He made this personal the second he checked in. I just gave you the chance to make it justice. Natalie ended the call and looked around her office one more time. The awards on the wall. The certificates. The photos of a life she'd thought was real. Then she opened her laptop and booked a flight to Hawaii. If Preston wanted to play games in paradise, she'd make sure he understood exactly whose paradise he'd chosen. The flight to Hawaii felt like it took forever, and no time at all. Natalie spent 6 hours staring out the window, watching clouds pass beneath the plane, her mind running through every business trip Preston had taken in the last 2 years. Denver, Seattle, Boston, Chicago. How many of those had been real? How many times had she kissed him goodbye at the door, wished him luck with his meetings, and then gone back to managing the company while he was somewhere else entirely, living a completely different life? She didn't sleep, didn't eat the food the flight attendant offered. Just sat there with her phone in airplane mode, looking at that photo Violet had sent. Preston and Ariella. Champagne and sunshine, the presidential suite. Her presidential suite. The plane landed just after sunset. Natalie grabbed her carry-on and made her way through the airport like she was moving through water. Everything felt slow and distant. The sounds around her seemed muffled. She walked past happy couples holding hands, families greeting each other with lays and hugs, honeymooners giggling as they took selfies in front of palm trees. Violet was waiting in the loading zone in an unmarked resort van. "Get in the back," she said through the window. "Stay low until we're past the main entrance." Natalie climbed in and crouched behind the front seats as Violet drove. She could smell the ocean through the open windows, plumeria and salt air and something sweet she couldn't name. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like a betrayal of its own. Paradise as the backdrop for the worst moment of her life. "He's at dinner right now," Violet said quietly. "The oceanfront restaurant. I have you going in through the laundry entrance. There's a staff uniform waiting in the service hallway. You'll blend right in." What if someone recognizes me? At this hour? Most of the staff who work the opening are on night shift rotation, and even if they do recognize you, they're loyal to me, not him. Violet's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Trust me, Nat. Half my staff already knows what he's doing. Hotels don't keep secrets from housekeeping." The van pulled around to the back of the resort where industrial-sized bins and laundry carts lined a concrete loading dock. Violet parked and turned around to face her sister. "Last chance to change your mind," she said. "We can turn around right now. You can file for divorce from home and never have to see him again." Natalie thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. "No," she said. "I need to see it. I need to know exactly what he's been doing." Violet nodded and handed her a staff polo shirt and khaki pants. "Change in the restroom just inside. Third door on the left. I'll wait here." 5 minutes later, Natalie emerged wearing the Sapphire Cove Resort uniform. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun. No jewelry. No makeup beyond what she'd worn on the plane. She looked like any other hotel employee ending a long shift. "Keep your head down," Violet said as they walked through the service corridor. "Don't make eye contact with guests. If anyone stops you, you're with housekeeping and you're on your way to restock the presidential floor." They moved through the maze of back hallways, past industrial kitchens where chefs were plating desserts, past break rooms where exhausted servers were checking their phones. The sounds of the hotel filtered through the walls. Laughter, music, the clinking of glasses. All of it happening just on the other side of the elegant facade, in the world where guests came to forget their real lives. Violet stopped at a door marked "Staff Only" and pulled out her master key card. "The lobby is just through here," she said. "You sure you're ready?" Natalie nodded. She wasn't sure of anything except that she needed to see him. Needed to confirm that the man she'd married was really capable of this. Violet opened the door. The lobby of Sapphire Cove Resort stretched out before them in all its carefully designed glory. Natalie had spent months working with the architects. She knew every detail: the imported marble floors, the custom light fixtures, the water feature that cost more than most people's houses. It had been her vision, her dream for what a luxury resort could be. And there, just visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows that opened onto the pool deck, was Preston. He was sitting at the poolside bar in linen pants and a white shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His hair was different, styled in a way she'd never seen. He looked relaxed, happy. He was laughing at something the woman next to him had said. Ariella Reed was even more beautiful in person. Long dark hair that caught the light from the tiki torches. A designer dress that probably cost what Natalie paid her assistant for a month. She had her hand on Preston's arm, her head thrown back in laughter, and he was looking at her the way he used to look at Natalie. The way he'd stopped looking at Natalie sometime in the last few years without her even noticing. Natalie. Violet's voice was quiet beside her. Breathe. She realized she'd been holding her breath. She exhaled slowly and felt something inside her shift. The numbness that had carried her through the flight, through the airport, through the costume change in the service bathroom. It was burning away. What replaced it was colder, sharper. Preston said something and Ariella laughed again. He raised his hand to get the bartender's attention, and Natalie saw the glint of his wedding ring in the torchlight. He was still wearing it. "Come on," Violet said, touching her elbow gently. "Let's get you to your room before someone notices you staring." Natalie let herself be guided back into the service corridor, but she couldn't stop seeing it. Preston's smile, Ariella's hand on his arm, the easy intimacy between them that spoke of time and familiarity and inside jokes that Natalie would never be part of. "How long?" she asked as they walked. "How long do you think this has been going on?" Violet was quiet for a moment. "Based on how comfortable they are together? This isn't new, Nat. This is practiced." The cold feeling in Natalie's chest spread outward until her whole body felt like ice. Good, she thought. She was going to need that coldness for what came next. The service suite was on the top floor, technically part of the presidential level, but hidden behind an unmarked door that most guests never noticed. Violet explained that it was originally designed for celebrity security details or VIP personal assistants who needed to be close but invisible. "The balconies connect," Violet said as she unlocked the door. "There's a privacy screen between them, but sound carries, especially at night when the pool area quiets down." Natalie stepped inside. The room was smaller than a standard guest suite, but still nicer than most hotel rooms she'd stayed in. Clean lines, neutral colors, a window that overlooked the ocean, and a sliding glass door that led to a balcony separated from the presidential suite's sprawling terrace by nothing more than a decorative bamboo partition. "I had housekeeping set up a recording device," Violet said quietly, pointing to a small black object on the nightstand that looked like a charging station. "It's voice activated. Anything said on either balcony gets picked up. The files save directly to a secure cloud account that only you can access." "Is this legal?" "You're recording conversations happening in a semi-public space on property that your family partially owns," Violet said. "And even if it weren't admissible in court, you'd still know the truth. Isn't that what you came here for?" Natalie nodded slowly. The truth. Yes, that's what she needed, even if it destroyed her. "Get some rest," Violet said. "I'll have room service send something up. You haven't eaten since you landed." After Violet left, Natalie stood in the middle of the room and tried to decide what to do. Unpack? Shower? Lie down and pretend any of this was normal? Instead, she found herself drawn to the balcony door. She opened it carefully, quietly, and stepped outside. The ocean stretched out before her, dark and endless under a sky full of stars. The sound of waves hitting the shore below was rhythmic and soothing. It should have been peaceful, romantic even. The kind of moment she'd imagined sharing with Preston back when they'd first talked about taking a real vacation together someday. She heard voices and froze. "This view is incredible!" Ariella's voice drifted over the partition. "I can't believe you found this place." "Only the best for you," Preston's voice was warm, intimate, the voice he used to use with Natalie in private moments. You deserve it after everything you've put up with. Natalie's hands gripped the balcony railing. She should go inside. She shouldn't listen to this. But her feet wouldn't move. When do you think you'll be ready? Ariella asked. To make it official, I mean. To really start our life together. There was a pause. Natalie could hear the clink of glasses. They were drinking something. Celebrating something. Soon, Preston said. The final transfer should clear by the end of the month. Once that's done, we'll have everything we need. New names, new city, new life. Just like we planned. Natalie felt the world tilt slightly. Transfer? New names? This wasn't just an affair. This was something else entirely. You're sure she won't notice? Ariella's voice had an edge to it now. Nervous. Your wife, I mean. She runs the company. Won't she see the money moving? Preston laughed. It was a sound Natalie had heard 1,000 times, but never like this. Cold. Calculating. Natalie trusts me completely. She always has. She thinks I'm taking care of the accounts while she focuses on the big picture strategy stuff. She has no idea how much liquidity we actually have, or where it's all sitting. And the shell company? Sawyer Reyes Logistics is completely clean. As far as anyone knows, it's a legitimate consulting firm we've been paying for services. By the time anyone thinks to audit it, we'll be gone. Somewhere without extradition treaties and with very good private banking. Natalie's breath caught in her throat. She pressed her hand over her mouth to keep from making a sound. This wasn't just cheating. This was theft. Fraud. He'd been systematically stealing from her family's company. From her. I can't wait, Ariella said softly. I'm so tired of hiding, of pretending, of watching you go home to her every night. I know, baby, I know, but it's almost over. Just a few more weeks, and Natalie Allen will be nothing but a bad memory. A stepping stone to something better. A stepping stone. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of building a life together, of trusting him with everything. Her heart, her family's legacy, her future. And she was nothing but a stepping stone. Natalie backed away from the balcony edge carefully, silently. She slipped back inside and closed the door without making a sound. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the recording device on the nightstand. The small light was blinking red. It had captured everything. She picked up her phone with shaking hands and sent a text to Violet. We need to talk. Tonight. Bring your lawyer. Then she opened her laptop and logged into the Allen Global Consulting accounts. She'd been so busy with strategic planning that she'd let Preston handle the day-to-day finances for the past year. He was good with numbers, he'd said. He'd take that burden off her plate, he'd said. She should focus on the bigger picture, he'd said. She'd believed him. Now she was going to find out exactly what he'd been doing with her family's money while she had been stupid enough to trust him. The numbness was completely gone now. What remained was something sharp and clear and absolutely unforgiving. Preston thought she was a stepping stone. He thought he could steal everything and disappear. He had no idea who he was dealing with. But he was about to learn. Violet arrived 20 minutes later with a woman Natalie had never met. She was tall and elegant, probably in her mid-40s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She carried a leather messenger bag and had the kind of focused intensity that made Natalie think of surgeons or fighter pilots. This is Alana Berry, Violet said. She's the resort's legal counsel. She also happens to specialize in financial fraud and asset recovery. Alana shook Natalie's hand with a grip that was firm and reassuring. Violet briefed me on the drive over. I'm sorry you're going through this. But I'm glad you called before doing anything impulsive. I need to see the numbers, Natalie said. All of them. Every charge he's made since he checked in. Every transaction he's run through the company accounts. Everything. Alana nodded and set her bag on the desk. Before we start, I need to make sure you understand what we're doing here. If we find evidence of fraud, you'll need to decide whether you want to pursue criminal charges or handle this privately through divorce proceedings. Those are very different paths, with very different consequences. Right now, I just want to know the truth, Natalie said. I'll decide what to do with it later. Violet was already logging into the hotel's administrative system on Natalie's laptop. I'm pulling up his reservation file now. Preston Allen, Presidential Suite. Check-in 3 days ago. Checkout scheduled for Sunday. The screen filled with details: room charges, minibar purchases, spa appointments, dinner reservations. Each line item was a small cut, a tiny betrayal that added up to something overwhelming. There, Violet said, pointing to a series of charges from the resort boutique. $5,312, all charged to a corporate American Express card ending in 4736. That's your business account, right? Natalie leaned closer to look. The purchases were itemized: designer dresses, shoes, jewelry, lingerie, a silk robe that cost $800. All of it bought for Ariella and charged to Allen Global Consulting. Can you cross-reference that card number with other charges in your system? Alana asked, pulling out a legal pad and pen. See if this is the first time he's used company money at this resort or if there's a pattern. Violet's fingers moved across the keyboard. Give me a minute. I'm searching all reservations under his name for the past 2 years. The room was silent except for the clicking of keys and the distant sound of ocean waves through the balcony door. Natalie felt strangely calm. The shock had burned away. The hurt had crystallized into something harder. She was in business mode now, the same mental space she occupied when reviewing quarterly reports or negotiating contracts. This was just another problem to solve, another set of numbers to audit, except the numbers represented her marriage falling apart in real time. Got something, Violet said quietly. He's been here before, 4 times in the past 18 months, always the same suite, always charged to the same corporate card. The total across all visits is just over $32,000. $32,000. Natalie's company money, her family's legacy, spent on hotel rooms and champagne and shopping sprees for a woman whose name Natalie had never even heard until yesterday. Alana was writing everything down, her pen moving in quick, efficient strokes. Do you have access to the full corporate account statements from your end? Natalie pulled up the Allen Global Banking portal on her phone. She'd always had access but rarely looked at the day-to-day transactions. Preston handled those. Preston took care of everything. Preston had been lying to her for at least 18 months. She scrolled through the recent charges. Corporate card 4736. There were hundreds of transactions, most of them legitimate. Vendor payments, client dinners, office supplies. But scattered throughout were other charges that made her stomach turn. Jewelry stores in cities where Preston had supposedly been on business trips. High-end restaurants that charged for 2. A charge from a Las Vegas hotel during a week when he'd told her he was visiting his sick mother in Phoenix. Look at this, Natalie said, showing Alana the screen. This charge from Cartier, 2 weeks ago. $15,000. He told me he was in Seattle for a conference. Alana examined the transaction. The Cartier store location is in Beverly Hills, nowhere near Seattle. Violet leaned over to look. What did he buy for $15,000? Natalie didn't answer. She was remembering something, a conversation from a few weeks ago. Preston asking if she'd noticed anything different about him. She'd laughed and said no. What was she supposed to be noticing? He'd seemed disappointed but hadn't pressed it. She'd thought it was about a haircut or a new cologne. Now she wondered if he'd bought Ariella an engagement ring with her family's money and been fishing for whether Natalie had somehow figured it out. We need to look at Sawyer Reyes Logistics, Natalie said suddenly, remembering what she'd overheard on the balcony. Preston mentioned it earlier. He said it was a shell company. That's where the real money is going. Alana's expression sharpened. Pull up your accounts payable records. Let's see how much you've been paying this company and for what services. It took 10 minutes to find it buried in the accounting software. Sawyer Reyes Logistics. Monthly payments ranging from $5,000 to $20,000. The invoices were vague. Consulting services. Strategic advisory. Market research. The kind of language that sounded legitimate but meant absolutely nothing. The total paid out over the past year was $247,000, $250,000 to a company that didn't exist, to a bank account that Preston controlled. Money that was supposed to be paying for her family's business expansion, for new hires, for the future they were building together. Money he was planning to use to disappear with Ariella and start a new life. This is wire fraud, Alana said quietly. This is embezzlement. This is serious prison time if you want to pursue it. Natalie stared at the numbers on the screen. $247,000. $32,000 at the resort. $15,000 at Cartier. God knew how much else in accounts she hadn't found yet. Preston hadn't just cheated on her. He'd been systematically robbing her family for over a year, maybe longer. Building an escape fund while she'd been working 60-hour weeks to keep the company growing. While she'd been coming home exhausted and falling asleep on the couch. While she'd been too busy trusting him to notice that he was stealing everything. I want copies of everything, Natalie said. Her voice was steady, cold. Every charge, every invoice, every transaction, and I want to know exactly how much money is sitting in that shell company account right now. Alana nodded. I'll need access to your corporate banking records and authorization to contact the bank directly. This is going to take a few days to fully document. We don't have a few days, Natalie said. He told Ariella the final transfer clears at the end of the month. That's less than 2 weeks. Once that money moves, we might never get it back. Violet and Alana exchanged a look. Then we work fast, Alana said, and we make sure that when you confront him, you have everything you need to bury him. Natalie spent the next day in her hidden suite, working with Alana to build a complete financial picture of Preston's theft. The numbers kept getting worse. Every hour revealed another account, another fake invoice, another lie. By evening, they'd documented over $400,000 in fraudulent transfers, but none of it prepared her for what happened at sunset. She was standing on the balcony, taking a break from the spreadsheets that were making her eyes hurt when she heard Preston's voice next door. Close your eyes, he said. I have something for you. Ariella laughed. What is it? You already bought me half the boutique. This is different. This is special. Trust me. Natalie's hand tightened on the balcony railing. She knew she should go inside, should stop torturing herself by listening to their intimate moments. But something kept her rooted in place. "Okay, you can look now." There was a long silence. Then Ariella's voice, breathless with excitement. "Preston, it's beautiful. Is this real? These stones look—" "They're real. Sapphires and diamonds. Vintage. It belonged to someone very important." Natalie felt her heart stop. No, he wouldn't. He couldn't possibly. She moved carefully to the edge of the balcony where the bamboo partition had a small gap. If she positioned herself just right, she could see through to their terrace. Preston was fastening a necklace around Ariella's neck. Even from a distance, even in the fading light, Natalie recognized it instantly. Her mother's necklace. The one her grandmother had given her mother on her wedding day. The one her mother had worn every single day until the cancer took her 3 years ago. The one Natalie had held at the funeral, pressing it to her chest like she could somehow keep a piece of her mother with her forever. The necklace Preston had promised to keep safe in their home safe. The one she couldn't bear to wear yet because the grief was still too fresh. The one she was saving for when she had a daughter of her own someday. It was around Ariella Reed's neck. "It's perfect," Ariella said, admiring her reflection in the balcony glass. "Where did you find it?" "An estate sale," Preston lied smoothly. "The moment I saw it, I thought of you. Classic, elegant, timeless, just like you deserve." Natalie couldn't breathe. Her vision was narrowing to a single point. The necklace. Her mother's necklace. The only physical thing she had left of the woman who'd raised her, who'd built Allen Global from nothing, who'd taught Natalie everything about strength and dignity and never letting anyone make you small. And Preston had stolen it. Had taken it from their safe and given it to his mistress like it was nothing. Like it meant nothing. Like Natalie's entire family history was just another trinket he could use to seduce someone else. She was moving before she realized it. Moving toward the partition. Moving toward them. She was going to climb over that bamboo screen and rip the necklace off Ariella's neck, and then she was going to— Arms locked around her from behind. Strong arms that pulled her backward, away from the edge. "Don't." Violet's voice was urgent in her ear. "Natalie, don't. Not like this." "That's my mother's necklace," Natalie said. Her voice didn't sound like her own. It sounded broken, feral. "He gave her my mother's necklace." "I know. I see it. But if you go over there right now, you lose everything. You lose the element of surprise. You lose the legal advantage. You lose control of the situation." Natalie struggled against her sister's grip. She could still see the necklace glinting in the sunset light. Could still see Ariella touching it, admiring it. Wearing something that should never have left Natalie's home. "He had no right," she said. Tears were streaming down her face now, and she didn't care. "That was Mom's. That was all I had left of her." "And you're going to get it back," Violet said firmly. "But not like this. Not by losing your mind and giving him ammunition to paint you as unstable or irrational. You're going to get it back the right way. The smart way." Natalie stopped struggling. Violet was right. She knew Violet was right. But the rage inside her felt too big for her body. It felt like it might actually tear her apart from the inside. "Come inside," Violet said gently, guiding her back through the balcony door. "Sit down. Breathe." Natalie sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together to make them stop. "I can't believe he took that. Everything else. The money, the affair, all of it. I could almost, but not that. Not my mother's necklace. Violet knelt in front of her and took her hands. Listen to me. This changes the plan. That necklace is stolen property. It's documented in your mother's will. It's cataloged in your insurance policy. This isn't just fraud anymore. This is theft. Grand larceny. I don't care about prosecuting him, Natalie said through her tears. I just want it back. I want her back. I know. Violet squeezed her hands. And we're going to make sure you get it back. But we're going to be smart about this. We're going to add it to the list of everything we're taking from him. And when we confront him, when we lay out every single thing he's stolen, that necklace is going to be item number 1, non-negotiable. He returns it immediately, or the police get involved. Natalie took a shuddering breath, then another. Violet was right. She needed to think clearly, needed to be strategic. Her mother had taught her that. Never let emotion cloud judgment when you're fighting for something that matters. And this mattered more than anything. Call Alana, Natalie said, her voice steadier now. Tell her we need to add theft of personal property to the documentation, family heirloom, significant emotional and monetary value, and tell her I want photographs. I want proof that he gave it to her. I want everything documented. Violet smiled grimly. Now you sound like Mom. Good, Natalie said, wiping her eyes, because I'm about to show Preston exactly what happens when you steal from the Allen women. She looked toward the balcony door where, beyond the partition, Preston and Ariella were probably still celebrating their romantic evening. Still laughing. Still thinking they'd gotten away with everything. They had no idea what was coming, but they would soon enough. The hotel's executive conference room was tucked away on the administrative level, far from the guest areas where Preston and Ariella spent their days lounging by the pool. Violet had it swept for recording devices that morning, just to be safe. Now it looked like the command center for a military operation. Alana had transformed the space overnight. The long table was covered in printed bank statements, highlighted invoices, and color-coded spreadsheets. A laptop displayed financial tracking software that Natalie had never seen before. The wall-mounted screen showed a flowchart of money movements that looked like a spider's web. "Come in and close the door," Alana said, without looking up from her computer. She'd been working since 5 in the morning, fueled by what Natalie suspected was an unhealthy amount of coffee. "We need to talk about what I found." Natalie sat down, Violet beside her. The sisters had barely slept. They'd spent most of the night documenting the necklace incident with photos taken through the balcony gap, time-stamped and saved to multiple cloud accounts. "How bad is it?" Natalie asked. Alana finally looked up. Her expression was grim. "Worse than we thought, and more sophisticated." She clicked her laptop, and the wall screen changed to show a corporate structure diagram. Sawyer Reyes Logistics isn't just a shell company. It's the center of an entire network. The diagram showed Sawyer Reyes connected to 3 other companies, each with names that sounded vaguely legitimate. Summit Advisory Group, Pacific Rim Consultants, Meridian Strategy Partners. "What am I looking at?" Natalie asked. "A laundering operation," Alana said. "Preston's been moving money through multiple layers to make it harder to trace. Allen Global pays Sawyer Reyes for fake consulting services. Sawyer Reyes then pays these other companies for equally fake services. Those companies then transfer the money to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands." She clicked again, and the screen filled with transaction records, hundreds of them, going back almost 3 years. 3 years? Natalie's voice cracked. He's been doing this for 3 years? Based on what I can find, yes. But I suspect it goes back even further. These are just the records I can access without subpoena power. Alana pulled up another document. The total I can definitively prove right now is $637,000. But that's conservative. The real number could be closer to $1 million. The room seemed to tilt. $1 million. Her family's money. The expansion capital they'd been saving. The fund her mother had set aside for future generations. Gone. Stolen by the man she'd trusted with everything. Where is it now? Violet asked. The money that's already been moved. Can we get it back? That depends on how fast we move, Alana said. The Cayman accounts are in Preston's name, but they're set up to transfer to a third-party beneficiary on a specific date. I'm guessing that's when he was planning to disappear? The end of the month, Natalie said, remembering what she'd overheard on the balcony. He told Ariella the final transfer would clear by the end of the month. Alana nodded. That gives us 12 days. If we can freeze the accounts before that transfer executes, we can recover most of the money. But we need a court order, which means filing charges and presenting evidence, and we need to do it without tipping Preston off. What happens if he finds out we know? Violet asked. He moves the money early, changes the transfer date, empties the accounts and vanishes before we can stop him. Alana's expression was hard. That's why we need to be absolutely certain we have everything documented before we make a move. One shot. That's all we get. Natalie stared at the web of companies on the screen. $637,000. Maybe more. 3 years of systematic theft. And she'd been completely blind to all of it. There's something else, Alana said quietly. She pulled up another file. I ran a background check on Ariella Reed. She's not just some random woman Preston met. She works for a financial services company in Los Angeles. Her specialty is offshore banking and asset protection. The words hung in the air like a bomb. You're saying she's not just his mistress, Natalie said slowly. She's his accomplice. I'm saying this was planned, Alana confirmed. Preston didn't randomly fall in love and make stupid decisions. He targeted you. He married into your family specifically to gain access to Allen Global's finances. And he brought in a professional to help him steal everything. Violet's hand found Natalie's under the table and squeezed hard. How long have they known each other? Natalie asked. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. Alana hesitated. Based on what I can piece together from social media and professional networks, at least 5 years? Maybe longer. 5 years. They'd been married for 7. He was planning this before we even got married, Natalie said. It wasn't a question. I think so. Yes. The conference room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Natalie looked at the evidence spread across the table. The bank statements, the fake invoices, the corporate structure designed specifically to rob her blind. Everything about her marriage had been a lie, from the very beginning. What do we need to do? She asked finally. Her voice was steady now, cold. What do we need to nail him? Alana pulled out a legal pad covered in notes. First, we need you to sign affidavits confirming that you never authorized these payments or had knowledge of these companies. Second, we need to file a police report about the stolen necklace, establishing theft of personal property. Third, we need to get your corporate accountant to certify that these invoices are fraudulent. And fourth, We need you to decide whether you want to confront him privately or bring in law enforcement immediately. I want both, Natalie said. I want him to know exactly what he's lost before the police take him away. Violet looked at her sister. Are you sure? Once we involve the police, this becomes public. Your family name will be in the news. The company will be scrutinized. It's going to be messy. Natalie thought about her mother, about the woman who'd built Allen Global from nothing, who'd taught Natalie that integrity mattered more than reputation, who'd worn that sapphire necklace every single day as a reminder of where she came from and what she'd fought for. Preston had stolen from that legacy, had desecrated that memory, had used her mother's company as his personal bank account. I'm sure, Natalie said. My mother didn't build this company by staying quiet when people tried to take what was hers. I'm not going to dishonor her memory by letting him walk away. Alana smiled. It was a fierce, sharp expression. Then let's get to work. Violet was reviewing dinner reservations in her office when her assistant buzzed through on the intercom. Ms. Houston, Mr. Eakin, Allen from the presidential suite is here to see you. He says he has a special request. Violet's hand paused over her keyboard. She looked up at the security monitor that showed the lobby outside her office. There was Preston, looking relaxed and confident in expensive resort wear, a self-satisfied smile on his face. The audacity of this man was actually impressive. Send him in, she said, arranging her face into the warm, professional expression she'd perfected over years of hospitality management. Preston walked in like he owned the place, which was ironic, considering his wife's family actually did own a significant portion of it. Ms. Houston, thank you so much for seeing me, he said, extending his hand. I've been so impressed with the service here. This resort is truly exceptional. Violet shook his hand and gestured to the chair across from her desk. We pride ourselves on creating memorable experiences. What can I help you with today, Mr. Allen? He settled into the chair, leaning back like they were old friends. I have a rather special request. I'm hoping you can help me pull off something really meaningful. Of course. That's what we're here for. Preston glanced toward the door, as if checking that no one could overhear. My partner and we've been together for a while now, and I want to do something to celebrate our commitment to each other. Not a legal wedding, just a private ceremony. Something intimate and romantic on the beach at sunset. Violet kept her smile perfectly in place, even as her stomach turned. A commitment ceremony. How lovely. I was thinking this Saturday evening, Preston continued. Just the two of us. Maybe some champagne, flowers, candles. Nothing too elaborate, but special enough that she'll remember it forever. He leaned forward conspiratorially. I'm planning to give her something very meaningful during the ceremony. A family heirloom that symbolizes our future together. The family heirloom he stole from his wife. The necklace currently hanging around Ariella's neck. The one that belonged to Natalie's dead mother. Violet's fingers tightened slightly on her pen, but her voice remained warm and professional. That sounds absolutely beautiful. Saturday evening is perfect. We have a private section of beach that would be ideal for something this intimate. Excellent. Preston pulled out his phone. I'll need someone to officiate, of course. Nothing religious, just someone who can speak about love and commitment and make the moment feel official. I have the perfect person, Violet said, and she meant it. Someone who knows exactly how to make these moments meaningful. Someone who really understands the depth of commitment and what it means to honor the bonds we make. Preston's face lit up. That would be amazing. Can they do it on short notice? For a guest like you, I'm absolutely certain they'll make time. Violet pulled up her calendar, making a show of checking availability even though she already knew exactly what she was going to do. Let me confirm with them, but I'm quite confident Saturday evening will work beautifully. You're a lifesaver, Preston said, standing up. What would I owe for something like this? The ceremony set up, the efficient. The works? Consider it complimentary, Violet said smoothly. A gift from Sapphire Cove Resort to celebrate your commitment. A gift from the resort that his wife's family owned, using resources that technically belonged to Natalie. The irony was so perfect it almost made Violet laugh. That's incredibly generous, Preston said. I really can't thank you enough. This is going to mean everything to Ariella. Violet stood and walked him to the door. Trust me, Mr. Allen, this ceremony is going to be unforgettable for everyone involved. They shook hands again and Preston left, practically glowing with excitement about the romantic gesture he was planning. The moment the door closed, Violet pulled out her phone and called Natalie. He just requested a commitment ceremony, she said without preamble. Saturday evening, private beach. He wants someone to officiate. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Natalie's voice, cold and sharp. What did you tell him? That I had the perfect person for the job. Violet allowed herself a small, grim smile. Someone who really understands commitment and honoring the bonds we make. Another pause. Then Natalie laughed. It was a sound Violet hadn't heard from her sister in days. Dark, fierce, absolutely merciless. Tell Alana to have all the paperwork ready by Saturday, Natalie said. Divorce papers, restraining order, full accounting of the fraud, everything. I want it all prepared and ready to serve. Already on it, Violet said. Alana's been working with a process server who can be on standby during the ceremony. What about the police? Alana says we should file the theft report for the necklace first thing Saturday morning. That gives them time to get a warrant, but not enough time for word to spread before the ceremony. Violet checked her calendar again. The timing will be tight, but we can make it work. He's going to give her my mother's necklace during this ceremony, Natalie said quietly, as a symbol of their future together. I know. I'm going to take it back, right there in front of everyone, and then I'm going to take everything else he stole. Violet heard the steel in her sister's voice, the same iron will that had helped their mother build Allen Global, the same strength that ran through every woman in their family. He has no idea what's coming, Violet said. Good, Natalie replied. Let him plan his perfect romantic moment. Let him think he's gotten away with everything. Let him believe that Saturday night is the beginning of his new life with Ariella. And then we show him exactly what happens when you underestimate the Allen women. After they hung up, Violet sat at her desk for a long moment, staring at the calendar entry she just created. Preston Allen, private beach commitment ceremony, 7 p.m. She added a note in the internal system. VIP event, GM oversight required. Special arrangements for efficient and additional guests. Then she picked up her phone and sent a text to the head of resort security. Saturday evening, 7 p.m. South Beach Pavilion. I need your most discreet team on standby. No uniforms. Evening wear. They're attending a ceremony. The response came back immediately. Understood. How many? Violet thought about it. 4 should do it. And make sure they know this isn't a protection detail. It's more of an escort service. Copy that. Violet leaned back in her chair and allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Preston Allen had walked into her hotel thinking he was safe, thinking he was anonymous, thinking he could betray her sister on her family's property and face no consequences. He was about to learn a very expensive lesson about the importance of knowing whose kingdom you're in before you start making plans. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of perfect weather that made Hawaii famous. Golden sunlight painted the ocean in shades of amber and rose. A gentle breeze carried the scent of plumeria and salt. The private section of beach that Violet had reserved was pristine, decorated with white fabric draped between palm trees, candles flickering in hurricane glasses, and a small archway woven with tropical flowers. It looked exactly like the romantic paradise Preston had requested. Natalie stood behind the archway, her back to the beach access path, wearing a simple white dress that her mother had loved. Her hair was down, the way Preston used to say he preferred it. She'd even put on makeup, though her hands had shaken so badly that Violet had to help with the eyeliner. She could hear them approaching. Preston's voice, excited and happy. Ariella laughing at something he'd said, their footsteps in the sand. "This is perfect," Ariella breathed. "Preston, it's so beautiful." "Only the best for you," he replied. "Come on, the officiant is waiting." Natalie's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might actually break through her ribs. Violet stood just out of sight behind a cluster of palms, phone in hand, recording everything. Alana was positioned near the resort entrance with the process server. And scattered around the beach in elegant evening wear were 4 members of resort security who could pass for wedding guests if you didn't look too closely. Preston and Ariella stopped a few feet away from the archway. Natalie could feel their presence behind her, could imagine the way they were holding hands, looking at each other with love and anticipation. "Are we ready to begin?" Preston asked. Natalie turned around. For a long moment, nobody moved, nobody breathed. The only sound was the ocean and the distant cry of seabirds. Preston's face went from confused to shocked to absolutely white in the span of 3 seconds. His hand dropped from Ariella's. He actually took a step backward. "Hello, Preston," Natalie said. Her voice was steady, calm. She was amazed by how calm she sounded. "Thank you for inviting me to officiate your commitment ceremony. I've prepared some very special vows for the occasion." "Natalie, I can explain," he started. "No," she interrupted. "You don't get to talk. Not yet. Right now, you're going to stand there and listen while I read these vows, the ones that celebrate the commitment you've made. To theft, to fraud, to embezzlement." Ariella was looking between them, her face confused. "Who is this?" "Preston, what's happening?" "This is Natalie Allen," Violet said, stepping out from behind the palms. "His wife, and the owner of this resort. Well, her family owns it. I'm just the general manager. Also her sister. Did Preston mention he was married when he checked in with you?" Ariella's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Natalie pulled a folder from behind the archway. "Let me read from the ceremony script, shall we?" She opened it and began. "Preston Allen, for the past 3 years, you have been committed. Committed to stealing from Allen Global Consulting. Committed to creating shell companies. Committed to laundering money through Sawyer Reyes Logistics, Summit Advisory Group, Pacific Rim Consultants, and Meridian Strategy Partners." Preston's face had gone from white to gray. "How did you—" "I'm not finished." Natalie's voice could have cut glass. You've moved $637,000 into offshore accounts. You've charged over $30,000 in romantic getaways to my corporate card. You stole a necklace that belonged to my dead mother and gave it to your mistress. She looked at Ariella. That sapphire necklace you're wearing? That's not from an estate sale. That's my mother's. She wore it every day of her adult life. Take it off. Now. Ariella's hands flew to the necklace. She looked at Preston, who said nothing. Her fingers fumbled with the clasp. I said now, Natalie repeated. The necklace came off. Ariella held it out like it was burning her hand. Natalie took it carefully, reverently, and fastened it around her own neck. The weight of it felt like her mother's arms around her shoulders. Natalie, please, let me explain. Preston tried again. This isn't what it looks like. Really? Natalie pulled out another document. Because Alana Berry, the attorney standing over there, has documented every single fraudulent transaction. And the police, who are currently waiting in the resort lobby, have a warrant for your arrest on charges of grand larceny for stealing this necklace. 4 men in dark suits stepped out from their positions around the beach. They weren't pulling weapons, but their presence was unmistakable. This ceremony was over. You have 2 choices, Natalie said. Choice 1. You sign a full confession right now. You sign over every dollar in those offshore accounts. You agree to a divorce with no contest and no claim to any Allen family assets. You do all of this, and I'll ask the district attorney to consider a plea deal instead of maximum sentencing. And choice 2? Preston's voice was barely a whisper. Choice 2. You refuse, and those officers escort you off this beach in handcuffs right now. You spend the weekend in jail. The story hits the news. Your face is everywhere, and I pursue every single criminal charge we can file with maximum prejudice: wire fraud, money laundering, theft. You'll be lucky if you see daylight before you're 50. Alana walked across the sand carrying a briefcase. She set it on a small table that had been meant for the champagne toast and opened it. Inside were stacks of paper. Everything is ready for signature, Alana said. Full confession, asset disclosure, divorce agreement. Mr. Allen, I suggest you read carefully and sign quickly. My colleague over there has the police on speed dial. Preston looked at the papers, then at Natalie, then at Ariella, who had backed away from him like he carried a disease. This is insane, he said. You can't do this. This is extortion. No, Natalie corrected. This is justice. You stole from my family. You betrayed my trust. You desecrated my mother's memory. And you thought you were going to get away with it because you underestimated me. She stepped closer to him. That was your biggest mistake, Preston. Thinking I was too trusting, too naive, too focused on the big picture to notice what you were doing. But you forgot something important. What's that? I'm my mother's daughter, and she didn't raise me to let anyone steal what's mine. Preston's hands were shaking as he picked up the pen. The sun was setting behind them, painting everything in shades of red and gold. He looked at the confession, at the asset transfer forms, at the divorce papers that would end 7 years of marriage. If I sign this, what happens to me? You leave this island tonight, Natalie said. You never contact me again. You cooperate fully with the authorities. And maybe, if you're very lucky and very convincing, you'll only serve 5 years instead of 20. And if I don't sign? Natalie nodded to Violet, who held up her phone. Then I release the video of you giving my mother's stolen necklace to your accomplice, I send the financial records to every news outlet in the country. I make sure that everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. And you spend the rest of your life trying to rebuild a reputation that will never recover. The beach was completely silent except for the waves. Preston looked at Ariella one last time, as if hoping she might defend him or offer support. But she was already walking away, her designer dress trailing in the sand, apparently having decided that a man with no money and criminal charges wasn't worth standing beside. Preston picked up the pen and began to sign. Each signature felt like vindication, like reclaiming a piece of herself that he'd stolen: the confession, the asset transfer, the divorce decree. Page after page, his handwriting getting sloppier as his hands shook harder. When he finished, Alana collected the papers efficiently and returned them to the briefcase. "The wire transfers will be reversed within 48 hours, she said. "And Mr. Allen, you should know that if you violate any terms of this agreement, every protection you just signed for disappears. Understood?" Preston nodded numbly. Violet stepped forward. "Your belongings have been packed and are waiting at the front desk. Your reservation has been canceled. You are no longer welcome at any property owned or managed by the Houston family. Security will escort you to the ferry dock." The four men in suits moved closer, not threatening, but making it clear that Preston's time at Sapphire Cove Resort was over. "Natalie," he said as they led him away, "I'm sorry. I really am sorry." She looked at him, at the man she'd married, the man she'd trusted, the man who'd systematically destroyed everything they'd built together. "No, you're not," she said quietly. "You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference." She watched as they escorted him across the beach, past the romantic decorations he'd requested, past the archway where he'd planned to pledge his commitment to another woman using money he'd stolen from his wife. When he was finally out of sight, Natalie's legs gave out. She sat down hard in the sand, her mother's necklace cool against her skin, and started to cry. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of release, of finally being free. Violet sat down beside her and pulled her close. "You did it," her sister said softly. "You got everything back." Natalie touched the necklace, thought about the money that would be returned, about the company that was safe, about the justice that had been served. "Not everything," she said, "but enough, more than enough." They sat there as the sun finished setting, two sisters on a beach in Hawaii, watching the end of one chapter and the beginning of something new. Preston's escort to the ferry dock didn't go as smoothly as Violet had planned. She was walking back toward the main building with Natalie when her radio crackled. "Ms. Houston, we have a situation at the front desk." Violet exchanged a look with her sister. "What kind of situation?" "Mr. Allen is refusing to leave. He's demanding to speak with management about his belongings." Of course he was. Even now, even after everything, Preston couldn't accept that he didn't get to make demands anymore. "Come on," Violet said to Natalie. "You might want to see this." They found Preston at the reception desk, still flanked by security but arguing loudly with the night manager. His face was red, and his voice had that edge of desperation that people get when they realize they've lost control of a situation. "I paid for this room through tomorrow," he was saying. "You can't just throw me out. I have rights as a guest." "Actually, you don't," Violet said, stepping forward. "Your reservation was canceled the moment you signed those papers. You're no longer a guest at this resort. You're trespassing." Preston turned to face her. "This is ridiculous. I need somewhere to stay tonight. The last ferry left 20 minutes ago. That sounds like a personal problem, Violet said coolly. Perhaps you should have thought about your accommodation needs before you decided to commit fraud on property owned by the family you were stealing from. I'm not leaving without my things. Violet nodded to the bellhop standing nearby. Show Mr. Allen his belongings. The young man looked nervous but determined. He gestured toward the resort entrance where two large suitcases and a garment bag were sitting in a pile. On the sand, just beyond the manicured pathway, like someone had literally tossed them out of the building. You threw my luggage in the sand? Preston's voice went up an octave. We removed your belongings from the presidential suite as per your canceled reservation, Violet said. Where they landed is not our concern. This is unacceptable. I want to speak to the owner. You're looking at her, Natalie said, stepping up beside her sister. Well, looking at the family that owns this resort, and we want you gone. Preston's mouth opened and closed. He looked from Natalie to Violet and back again, apparently only now understanding the full extent of how thoroughly he'd been outmaneuvered. You planned this, he said. All of it. The ceremony, the confession, everything. We responded to your actions, Natalie corrected. You chose to have an affair at my sister's hotel. You chose to use my corporate card to pay for it. You chose to steal my mother's necklace. We just chose to make sure you faced consequences. I signed your papers. I gave you everything you wanted. What more do you want from me? Violet stepped forward until she was inches from Preston's face. Her voice was quiet, but every word was edged with steel. We want you to understand something very clearly. You walked into this resort thinking you were safe, thinking you were anonymous, thinking you could do whatever you wanted because nobody would ever know. But you made one critical mistake. What's that? You forgot to check who owned the place before you started cheating. Violet smiled, and it was not a kind expression. This is my kingdom, Preston. Every person you see here answers to me. Every camera in this building reports to my security team. Every credit card charge crosses my desk. You thought you were hiding, but from the moment you checked in, we've been watching everything. Preston's face had gone pale again. He looked around the lobby at the staff members who were pretending not to watch, but definitely watching. At the security team that had been tailing him for days without him realizing it. At the cameras mounted discreetly in every corner. You can't do this, he said weakly. We already did, Natalie replied. Now get out of our resort. Where am I supposed to go? The ferry doesn't run again until morning. Violet pointed toward the exit. There's a public beach about 2 miles north. I'm sure you'll be very comfortable there. Or you could try the budget motel in town. I hear they have rooms for $60 a night. She paused. Oh, wait. You don't have any money anymore, do you? Since you just signed it all back to Natalie. Preston looked like he might actually cry. This is inhuman. You can't just leave me stranded on an island with nowhere to go. You're not stranded, Violet said. You have 2 perfectly good feet. Start walking. What about Ariella? She'll help me. She left 20 minutes ago, Natalie interrupted. Caught a ride to the airport with some other guests. Apparently, when she realized your offshore accounts were empty and you were facing criminal charges, she remembered she had somewhere very important to be. Somewhere that wasn't anywhere near you. The look on Preston's face was almost satisfying enough to make up for 7 years of lies. She left? He said numbly. She just left? Shocking, isn't it? Natalie said. It's almost like she was only interested in your money and not actually in love with you. Kind of like how you were only interested in my money and not actually in love with me. Preston opened his mouth to argue, then seemed to realize he had nothing to say. He looked at his luggage sitting in the sand. Then back at Violet. I need to at least get my things to the ferry dock. Then I suggest you start carrying, Violet said. She nodded to security. Gentlemen, please escort Mr. Allen and his belongings off resort property, and make sure he understands that if he sets foot on any Houston family property ever again, we'll have him arrested for trespassing. The security team moved in, not touching Preston but making it very clear that his time arguing was over. He looked at Natalie one more time, and she could see him trying to find the right words. Some combination of apology and justification and plea for mercy that might change her mind. Don't, she said before he could speak. Just go. He went. Slowly, reluctantly, with as little dignity as a man can have while being watched by a lobby full of people who knew exactly what he'd done. Security followed him to his luggage, then shadowed him as he struggled to carry everything down the beach path toward the public road. When he was finally gone, the lobby seemed to exhale collectively. Staff members who'd been frozen in place trying not to stare went back to work. The night manager actually smiled at Violet. Is there anything else you need, Ms. Houston? No, thank you, Marcus. You handled that perfectly. After he walked away, Natalie turned to her sister. Did you really throw his luggage in the sand? The bellhop may have been a little enthusiastic with his tossing technique, Violet admitted. I certainly didn't tell him to aim for the sandiest part of the beach. That was all his initiative. Remind me to give him a bonus. They stood there for a moment, watching through the windows as Preston's figure got smaller in the distance, struggling with suitcases that had probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. How do you feel? Violet asked. Natalie thought about it. She was exhausted, emotionally wrung out. Her feet hurt from standing on the beach. She'd been running on adrenaline and fury for days, and now that it was over, she felt like she might collapse. But underneath all of that was something else, something lighter. Free, she said finally. I feel free. Violet put her arm around her sister's shoulders. Good. Because you are. You took back your money, your mother's necklace, your company, and your dignity. Preston Allen has nothing, and you have everything that matters. Not everything, Natalie said, touching the sapphire necklace. But everything I need. They walked back toward Violet's office, leaving Preston to figure out his own way off the island. Natalie's phone buzzed with a message from Alana confirming that all the signed documents had been filed and the wire transfers were already in process. $637,000 would be back in Allen Global's accounts by Monday morning. The offshore accounts had been frozen, and Preston would spend the next several years explaining to federal prosecutors exactly how he'd thought he could get away with wire fraud. It wasn't a perfect ending. Her marriage was over. Her trust had been shattered. She'd have to rebuild parts of her life from scratch. But she was standing. She was strong. And she was wearing her mother's necklace. That felt like victory enough. 6 months later, Natalie stood on the balcony of what had once been her hiding place and was now her office. The ghost suite had been transformed. Where there had been a simple bed and minimal furniture, there was now a mahogany desk with dual monitors, a conference table for client meetings, and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with business texts and family photos. The balcony itself had been extended, the bamboo partition removed entirely, and the space now flowed seamlessly into what used to be the presidential suite. Natalie had claimed both spaces, combined them, made them into something new. The view was still incredible. Ocean stretching to the horizon, palm trees swaying in the breeze, sunset painting everything in shades of gold and rose. But now when she looked at it, she didn't see the place where her marriage ended. She saw the place where her new life began. Knock, knock, Violet called from the doorway. She was carrying a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. Are you ready to celebrate? Or are you still buried in those quarterly reports? Natalie closed her laptop and smiled. I'm ready. Violet poured the champagne and they stepped out onto the balcony together. The evening air was warm and sweet. Below them, resort guests were gathering for dinner at the oceanfront restaurant. Music drifted up from the poolside bar. Everything was exactly as it should be. To Allen Global Consulting, Violet said, raising her glass. Now with Pacific operations based at Sapphire Cove Resort. And to my brilliant sister who turned the worst moment of her life into the best business decision she ever made. Natalie clinked her glass against Violet's. To family, the kind you can trust. They drank, and Natalie felt the champagne bubble on her tongue. It tasted like victory, like closure, like moving forward. I got an email from Alana today, Violet said casually. Thought you might want to hear the update. About Preston? His sentencing hearing is next month. The prosecutor is recommending 8 years based on the plea deal. With good behavior, he might be out in 5. 8 years? Natalie tried to feel something about that. Satisfaction, maybe, or vindication. But mostly what she felt was distant, like Preston Allen was something that had happened to someone else a long time ago. What about Ariella? She asked. Cooperating witness? She testified against him in exchange for immunity. Apparently, she's working as a paralegal in Oregon now under her real name, which isn't actually Ariella Reed. Violet shook her head. The whole thing was a con from the beginning. They met at a financial crime seminar, if you can believe that. Started planning the whole operation before he even applied for the job at Allen Global. Natalie absorbed this information. A year ago, it would have destroyed her. Now, it just felt like confirmation of what she already knew. Preston had never loved her. He'd seen an opportunity and taken it. His mistake was underestimating what would happen when she found out. Do you ever regret it? Violet asked quietly. The way we handled it? The public confrontation? Natalie thought about it. The story had made headlines for weeks. Tech executive's husband arrested for embezzlement at sister-in-law's resort. It hadn't been pleasant. There had been reporters, questions, speculation about her judgment and her marriage. But there had also been an outpouring of support. Other women sharing their own stories of financial abuse. Business partners impressed by how swiftly she'd handled the crisis. New clients who wanted to work with someone who'd proven she could protect what mattered. No, Natalie said. I don't regret it. If I'd handled it quietly, let him disappear, he would have done this to someone else. This way, at least there's a record. A warning. And what about you? Are you happy? Natalie looked around. At her new office, at the resort where she now spent half her time, splitting operations between here and the San Francisco headquarters, at the life she'd built from the ruins of her marriage. Allen Global Consulting had its best quarter ever last month. She'd hired 3 new associates, landed 2 major contracts with tech companies looking to expand into Asian markets, and she'd done it all without Preston's supposed help, with the finances. Turned out she was perfectly capable of running every aspect of her family's business. She just needed to stop trusting someone else to handle the parts she thought were beneath her attention. "I'm getting there," she said honestly. "Some days are harder than others. Some days I still can't believe I was married to someone who could do that. But mostly I'm just grateful I found out when I did, before he could take everything, before it was too late." Violet reached over and squeezed her hand. "Mom would be proud of you. You know that, right?" Natalie touched the sapphire necklace. She wore it every day now, just like her mother had. A reminder of where she came from, what she was protecting, who she was fighting for. "I hope so," she said. "I tried to handle it the way she would have, with strength and dignity and absolutely no mercy for people who steal from family." "Oh, you did better than that," Violet said with a laugh. "Mom would have just had him arrested. You orchestrated an entire psychological warfare campaign culminating in a beachside ambush. That was art." They both laughed, and it felt good, easy, like sisters should laugh together. Below them, a couple walked hand in hand along the beach. Young, happy, probably on their honeymoon. Natalie watched them and didn't feel bitter. Didn't feel cynical about love or marriage or trust. She just felt cautious, wiser, more aware of red flags and warning signs and the importance of keeping your own hands on your own finances. "Are you going to date again?" Violet asked, following her gaze. "Eventually, I mean, when you're ready." "Maybe," Natalie said. "Someday, when I meet someone who sees me as a partner instead of an opportunity. Someone who wants to build something with me instead of taking what I've already built." She paused. "Someone who understands that I come as a package deal with a very protective sister who runs background checks on everyone." "Damn right I do," Violet said. "And financial audits, and references from ex-girlfriends. I'm not letting anyone hurt you again." "I know, and I love you for it." They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink lower on the horizon. The sky was turning pink and orange and purple. Another perfect Hawaiian sunset in an endless series of perfect Hawaiian sunsets. "You know what the best part is?" Natalie said finally. "Preston thought he was so smart, thought he'd planned everything perfectly, thought he'd marry into money, steal what he could, and disappear into a new life. And instead? Instead, I'm standing in a multi-million-dollar resort that my family owns, running a company that's more successful than ever, wearing my mother's jewelry, and drinking champagne with my sister while he's sitting in a federal prison preparing for 8 years of consequences." Natalie raised her glass. "He wanted my life, my money, my success. And all he got was proof that you can't steal what someone's willing to fight for." Violet raised her glass too, to fighting for what matters, to family, to truth, and to the Sapphire sisters. Natalie added with a smile, "May we never again be underestimated." They clinked glasses and drank as the sun finally disappeared below the horizon. Tomorrow, Natalie had meetings with potential clients. Next week, she was flying to San Francisco to oversee the opening of a new regional office. Next month, she was keynoting a conference on financial security for women entrepreneurs. Her calendar was full. Her company was thriving. Her future was bright. And Preston Allen was nothing but a cautionary tale she sometimes told at dinner parties about the importance of keeping separate bank accounts and never, ever letting anyone convince you that trust means blindness. The best revenge, Natalie had learned, wasn't making someone suffer. It was living so well, so fully, so successfully, that they became irrelevant to your story. And as she stood on that balcony with her sister, with her mother's necklace cool against her skin and the sound of the ocean in her ears, Natalie realized that Preston Allen had already become exactly that, irrelevant. And she had never felt more free in her entire life.